History Book of Dinosaurs.
Hello everybody and welcome to another History Book of Dinosaurs episode. Today we're going to be discussing the Titanic, ocean liner that could carry a lot more people than it carried on its maiden voyage. The one that killed 1,500 people. It was carrying over 2,200 people and only 705 made it through the incident. Anyways, we got to discuss everything that happened to it through the construction all the way to the sinking. Anyways, on to the main video. It all started in 1907, when plans were drawn out for 3 huge ocean liners for the White Star Line by Thomas Andrews, an important figure for later on. But anyways, in 1909, the first and second ship, the Olympic and ill-fated Titanic, started construction. The Olympic was built earlier than the Titanic, so the Olympic was the first to be built, and basically, they had to reconstruct some of their building docks to fit the huge ships. They were the biggest for their time, actually, until another ship stole that record. We'll get onto that later. Anyways, the Titanic had 2 sister ships. One older one, the Olympic, and the younger one, the Titanic. The Titanic sank in 1916 due to an ocean mine. And we, of course, know the Olympic lasted 24 years in service before being scrapped in the 1930s, just before World War II. But we gotta go onwards. As we go through this video, you're gonna notice that I'm gonna mention more constructions about the Titanic and how it was constructed. But we gotta move on. In 1909, on May, they started construction, and 3 years later, in 1911, they finally launched the ship. Yep, guess what? It was launched and 100,000 people came to see it. Afterwards, it took another 16 months for the ship to be furnished and all. However, the Olympic had an accident in the time the Titanic was supposed to leave in the midst of March. So, guess what? It was delayed. And by April, that iceberg that the Titanic had sailed down into part of the route of the Titanic. But they didn't notice, so they continued with the ill-fated journey. As we go through, the Titanic stopped at Southampton, England, then to Cherbourg, France, and to Queenstown, Ireland, and was supposed to move all the way to New York City in the good old US of A. However, a few days into the journey, guess what happened? On April 14th, 1912, at around 11:43 p.m., First Officer Lightoller had noticed an iceberg from the crow's nest without binoculars. 43 seconds later, an iceberg had impacted the ship from the side. Now, unlike other people think where it broke the steel, it actually just removed a few rivets and caused the steel plates to buckle and go whop. And that was no good. So that meant the first 5 compartments in the coal bunker of the 6th compartment had been flooded, which left the Titanic in a severely damaged position, and the ship would end up sinking. The first lifeboat was launched at 12:30 a.m., half filled. And as the sinking continued, other people started to notice and the lifeboats started to get heavier and heavier full of people. The last 2 collapsible lifeboats were collapsibles A and B. We all know B for it being upside down like the Australians, and A for being the last boat to leave the ship upright. This was a big problem, and at 12, decks started to flood. It took a long time till the last 20 minutes where it started speeding up real quick. The grand staircase had been flooding compared to the lesser ship fairly slowly until during the last 10 minutes of the sinking, where it finally imploded at 2:15 a.m., which left it completely empty, which does explain why there was a lot of wood at the sinking site after it sank. As the ship continued getting a pitcher into the air, the ship actually lost its list, so it looked like the James Cameron boat during the last 20 minutes of the sinking. The split was different, however. The split had consisted of the 3rd and 4th funnel being together during the split, and the ship just pulled down the third funnel and the crew's mess. So it went down there, and as the stuff continued, the 4th funnel, unlike contrary to belief, where it just toppled over onto its side, it actually just stayed on until it just got knocked over very slowly. It just went. As the ship continued to flood down, however, continued and continued to have a ill-fated and absolutely horrendous fate. By 2:20 a.m., the entire ship was gone, all under the sea. Seconds later, survivors reported hearing a big bang. It was in fact the stern imploding. There were still a lot of air pockets in the ill-fated stern of the ship. The front had no air pockets remaining, so it clearly indicated that the stern had sank too quickly, had sank at the same pace as the front part. There probably would have been more survivors as they would have been able to help. And the Carpathia could have arrived during the final plunge and desperately came to somehow help you. However, it's unfortunate because it sank too quick, leaving 1,500 people to freeze in the middle of the ocean. 1,500 people couldn't make it to the Carpathia. The remaining 705 ill-fated passengers aboard that survived were brought to the Carpathia, including a man who was severely drunk due to him drinking a warm whiskey. But the Carpathia was the Titanic's rescue ship. It later sank during World War I, an unfortunate loss. The Titanic now rests 2.5 miles under the sea. And now we go to this year in the month of June. A Titan sub from OceanGate went down on its 5th mission to go see the Titanic. However, during that 5th mission, it imploded, killing all 5 people on board. But I think that'll wrap things up for today's History But with Dinosaurs episode. See y'all next time on the next episode, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Goodbye!